Good morning, Trinity Baptist Church. Today we are in Mark chapter 11. But since you heard Jim preach on verses 1 through 11 yesterday with Jesus riding into Jerusalem and the people throwing their coats down and shouting, "Hosanna, save us," I'm going to start in verse 12. On the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. But when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said to it, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard it. And they came to Jerusalem. And he entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he was teaching them and saying to them, "Is it not written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations'? But you have made it a den of robbers." And the chief priests and the scribes heard it, and were seeking a way to destroy him, for they feared him, because all the crowd was astonished at his teaching. And when evening came, they went out of the city. As they passed by in the morning, they saw the fig tree withered away to its roots. And Peter remembered and said to him, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed is withered." And Jesus answered them, "Have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, 'Be taken up and thrown into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also, who is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses." And they came again to Jerusalem. And as he was walking in the temple, and the chief priests and the scribes and the elders came to him, and they said to him, "By what authority are you doing these things? Or who gave you this authority to do them?" And Jesus said to them, "I'll ask you one question. Answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. Was the baptism of John from heaven or from man? Answer me." And they discussed it with one another, saying, "Well, if we say from heaven, he will say, 'Why then did you not believe him?' But shall we say from man?" They were afraid of the people, for they all held that John really was a prophet. So they answered Jesus, "We do not know." And Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." And this chapter is dear to me because I mentioned on Saturday that I took a class on Mark and I wrote my research paper on this chapter. And I learned that this is a very carefully written section where Jesus finds this fig tree not doing what it should, and he curses it. And then he goes to Jerusalem and he finds the whole temple system not doing what they should, and he cleanses it out. And then on his way back out of Jerusalem, or actually the next morning on his way back into Jerusalem, his disciples say, "Look, the fig tree you cursed has also been cleared away." And he says, "Yes, of course." And there is in that a warning for us. You remember that just before this, it was the triumphal entry and people were saying, "Yes, the King is here, Jesus is here," and they're shouting and praising and saying, "Save us, God." But one of the first things he does is go in and clean out the temple to emphasize to them that our expectations aren't always God's purposes, and that Jesus was not sent to fulfill their expectations. Jesus was sent to fulfill God's purposes. We shouldn't conflate the two. We shouldn't get them mixed up. But the other thing he talks about through here is prayer. And they fit together because when our expectations are not God's purposes, the way we fix that, the way we reshape our expectations, become more like God's purposes, is through prayer. As we spend time with God in prayer, He changes our hopes and our desires and our vision and makes it more like His purposes for the world. And so I encourage you again today, please continue to pray for one another and for our world.